everyone, this is Nisha M., your geek mom from Diversely Geek Discusses, and welcome to My Geek Universe. And I hope your Geek Universe too. What I wanted to do today was share a little bit about my love for fandom, my absolute passion for embracing your inner geek and learning to express that in your everyday life, which, as most of you know, ultimately is a philosophy that we adopted as the message and the mission for Diversely Geek. What we really hope that we can do is to help folks out there who are having a hard time connecting to their fandom passions and allowing themselves to experience those positive, accepting, and empathetic fandom loves, and helping them to guide them as they find a way to translate those fandom passions into positive action, transform themselves into positive, accepting, diverse, fantastic, magical beings that can change the world. As most of you know, I believe very strongly in the Geek Nation being the strongest, the most vocal, the most powerful, the most compassionate, and altruistic, giving and nurturing nation in existence. I mean, there's been a burgeoning of fan-based nonprofit organizations and charitable events and endeavors that are just really filling our social media mediums that give us an opportunity to, one, become compassionately invested in something that we believe in, to donate in funds, finances, our skills, our brain power, and volunteer our time and our efforts to be able to do something in the hopes of being a mediating positive factor to being hopefully a positive social or communal or a familial influence in someone's life somewhere, or just literally doing it because we love to give. I think that inherently, when we have learned to embrace our geek nature and embrace the passion that we have for something that has influenced our life in such a progressively hopeful way, then we are better adapted and equipped to be able to deal with the dilemmas and the conflicts of our everyday life. One, because, fandom, book, mediums, literary, film, cinematography, music lyrics, musicals, dialogue, monologue, art of almost every form out there, nature, the environment, conservatism, conservationism, science, STEM, almost anything in the technological world, the techie world, the world of discovery and imagination, imagineering, I believe that all of this comes from our ability to self-identify what we love, the positive aspects of what we love, and then allow our emotions, our psyche, our physical wellness to be layered in that positivity and that positive influence, to allow our sense of communal thinking and social principle to also be, I don't want to say overwritten, but to also be moved by what we have learned through our fandoms. I believe very strongly in the Diversely Geek message. First, that it is extremely essential for all of us to accept who we are, accept that we are perfectly imperfect, accept that we're going to make mistakes, that we're going to say the wrong thing, sometimes have the wrong tone, and maybe not understand everything the way someone is asking us to understand it. But to accept that then allows us and motivates us, and maybe then inspires us to look at the world differently, look at our social consciousness differently, look at our connectivity and our processing, rather than staying locked in a box, like, who moved our cheese? The mouse who is in that maze searching for the cheese, and when the cheese gets moved out of the maze, has no idea how to find it. That's what will happen to us if we don't learn. That's what does happen to us if we don't accept. So I believe very strongly that, as I've said, that the Geek Nation, being the largest in the world, has the strongest voice and has the greatest ability to affect positive social change and progress in the world. I also believe that once you have learned to embrace that nerd geek side of who you are, that you then gain a tremendously large family. You gain access and acceptance and nurturing of a very large community of people who want to discuss fandoms that you believe in, who want to discuss that newest album that came out and what does that lyric mean to you, who want to discuss Van Gogh and why Starry Night moves you to tears and makes you look at your life and hope and imagination in a completely different way. Why Doctor Who, you guys see what I did there, right? Woohoo! Why Doctor Who, in its 52 years, has allowed the greatest of scientists, astronomers and astrophysicists and astronauts and geologists and any is that you can think of to dream to become part of the STEM world, to become part of the discovery of what's new, of what's possible, and what's out there in space. To dream of time and space and relativity. TARDIS. I mean, that is what fandom does. Fandom inspires hope. It inspires belief. It inspires possibilities. That's what it does. And that's what fandom does. It inspires the belief in possibilities. It inspires us to emotively connect to that thought, that light bulb, that Ben Franklin in our brain that goes off and says, well, what happens if we draw it this way? What happens if we write these words? What happens if we shoot it this way? What happens if we add this chemical in this particular amount to this chemical? And then what happens if we combine them to create this medical breakthrough, this vaccine, this cure? See, that's all part of fandom. And that's all part of embracing that inner geek, that nerd side of you. And then once you've embraced it completely, you self-accept, you self-reflect, you self-identify, then you express it in your everyday life. That means you get out there and you share these passions, these hopes, and these dreams with the world. Because why not, right? That's what we're here to do. We're part of one humanity. And I would hope that as part of being one huge human family, that we would want to give and share and nurture not just what we have found, what we have discovered, but then to nurture that in others so that maybe when we put our discoveries together, we literally have an explosion of discovery. That brings us to the third part of the message. It's now transforming your fandom passion into positive action. Moral altruism. I believe that a happy, content, and intent soul, one that has embraced who they are, is now expressing that in their daily life. That soul, that being, is more likely to be able to transform the world through positive action because they can understand that. And when I talk about fandom, I want you to understand that I mean positive fandoms. Things that are sound, that benefit humanity, that fandoms that help us to understand our inner conflicts and our inner personality traits and our character, and maybe develop our character in a way that allows us to be part of the universal hope, right? I mean, there are those fandoms that can inspire other movements, and we don't want to focus on that, but we do recognize that they exist. And the hope is that if you allow that child from infancy, from the womb, to hear the right sounds, to hear the right music, to listen to you reading a book about hopes and dreams and magic and fantasy and science fiction and anything that's along the lines of hope and growth and potential, that you are now imprinting those messages in the psyche of that developing child. And then if you constantly, have positive influences and positive strokes and supportive encounters and interactions through things like fandom passion, for instance, us sitting down as a family growing up watching Lord of the Rings. Listen, I can't even tell you how nerdish we were to be like 20 of us sitting in a room, snowed in a blizzard, literally over 3 days, watching all of Lord of the Rings and just happily just cuddling together because almost all of us knew the words. And it gave us such a strong sense of hope, but it really gave us a sense of fulfillment, right? And I know that there are fandoms in this world that you can do that with your friends and your families and your communities that give you that same sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, and self-love and inclusiveness. And so by embracing then expressing, then you can transform. So it's moving from the mediocrity to the possibility. And in doing that, now altruism tends to also grow and develop and be born. That is why there are so many fandom organizations that are nonprofits like ourselves. Diverse the Geek is a nonprofit that is here to spread a message of universal diversity, of mental wellness, and self-acceptance. That is what our hope and our goal is, right? So there are so many other organizations doing such big things in the world. And they all started with a bunch of nerds and geeks like you and me who want to do something right, do something good, do something positive, and help to reduce things like marginalization and exclusion, like racism, bigotry, genderism, abuses of every kind. These organizations are out there to help. Helping Hand, a Helping Thought, organizations that are out helping people find jobs, career paths, and more. So transforming your fandom passion into positive action is first and most importantly necessary for you to do for yourself. you have to first self-transform by self-identifying, by knowing what your conflicts are, and then learning how to work through those conflicts. Like, oh my God, one of my favorite characters of all time is going to be Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender. A character who goes through literally the fire to be able to find his moral compass, his ethical principle. But in order to shed and burn away all of the role assumptions that he has placed on him by his family, by his legacy, and by tradition, he has to be willing to sacrifice all of that, to follow the path of Aang, the Avatar, towards unifying all of humanity and all of the worlds. I was transformed just by watching that alone. So just that example alone helps you to understand how fandom can help us to self-transform, because, you know, we are all going to go through difficult times in life. That is part of birth. And we come to the world, we will experience, and we will deal with dilemmas and tragedies and discomforts. But when we have a strong unit behind us like the Geek Nation, and we have fandoms that can help us to understand that there are tools out there to help us to deal with our depressions, with our anxieties, with our pains, with our loss, with our grief, that we are comfortable enough, that we have enough of a living example in a fandom. Superman, Wonder Woman, Mulan, Kubo, Ruby, Ruby, my God. Reverie, one of my favorite shows. Timeless, another one of my favorite shows. Princess Leia, come on. And just so many characters that we have to reflect on, to review, and learn through their experiences that can help us to find our own identities and then self-transform. And by self-transforming, we can then affect positive change in the world, right? I believe in that. I know that we here at Diversely Geek believe that it is absolutely possible, which is why we are here, and hoping that you will stay with us on the journey as we move from embracing your inner geek to expressing your inner geek, to transforming your fandom passion into positive action. And you will be willing to share my Geek Universe and your Geek Universe as we journey towards self-acceptance. All right, thank you, and good night from Diversely Geek Discusses. I'm Nisha, I'm your Geek Mom, and this is my Geek Universe. Love to all of you. And remember, we love you and we accept you.